Welcome back. My name is India and I happen to read a lot, and welcome to my February wrap up. We need to have a little bit of a chat about February. So February as a month started off very strong. I read an amazing book in February, but that book took me a long time to get through, and I'll talk about that book at the end because it is my favorite book of the month. Basically, what I want to say is after having an amazing January where I read so many amazing books and I really felt great, I then went into February and read a lot of slow-paced books and a lot of books I didn't care about, and I DNF'd so many books, like 10 or 20 pages in. They didn't even make it to this wrap-up because I didn't think there was even a point. And I ended up with kind of one of the worst slumps. Not only reading, but creating. I haven't made it, like, obviously my March one came out March 1st, but I haven't actually made many YouTube videos in the month of February or posted much on Instagram or TikTok. Like, I just entered some kind of creative slump. So you're going to look at this and you're going to go, India, that's actually a pretty good number of books, but it just doesn't feel right in my soul. Doesn't feel right in my soul, okay? We did start and end on a high, but that middle bit in February was not fun. So I am very looking forward to February being over, reading-wise. But let's jump in and talk about all the books that I read in February. So for those of you who may be watching a wrap-up of mine for the first time, the way that I like to go about my wrap-ups is starting from lowest rating all the way to the top and talking about my favourite book of the month at the very, very end of the video. We do have some DNFs that I've already mentioned this month, so let's start with the DNFs first. So first up is Underwater by Tara Menon. So this book follows our main character who is in New York at the time, and everybody's preparing for, I believe it's a hurricane or a tornado or something like that, a big storm to hit the city. And as everybody is kind of preparing for this storm, it makes her think about the 2004 Boxing Day tsunami, which hit a small island that she was living on, and her best friend died due to the events of this tsunami. And it follows two parallel stories, one in the present in New York City as everybody's preparing for the storm and her reflections on her life since the tsunami, and leading up to the actual tsunami itself. Literary fiction is hit or miss for me personally. I think the writing was incredibly accessible. I thought the writing was beautiful. For me, there wasn't enough plot to keep me engaged. This was my issue. So I read about 60% of this book. I found in general, and it happens with a lot of literary fiction, so this is just what happens when I try to branch out and read a bit more literary fiction if I feel like I haven't read enough of it, is that if the focus is more on emotions and feelings and one character's internal thoughts and processes rather than an overarching plot, I tend to get lost a little bit. I prefer my fiction books to just have that little bit more plot rather than character focus. I love a good character. Characters are obviously the foundations of a book, but there wasn't enough plot in this to keep me engaged, unfortunately, which sounds horrific due to the topic that this book is discussing. The next book I DNF'd, and this hurts me, guys, in my fucking soul. It is An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson. This is a dark academia fantasy novel about a woman who finds out that she has powers over persuasion, and she attends a kind of university-esque school to learn more about her persuasion skills and how to hone them, and she has this kind of mysterious professor that she's drawn to. What I will say is that book solidified for me that maybe fantasy academia is not for me. I really struggle with academic settings, and this is not specific to this one. I read The Will of the Many for book group, and my biggest gripe was I didn't like the academic fantasy setting. I'm not a fan of academic fantasy. It's just really not my thing. I don't want a boarding school. I don't want a military academy. I don't want anything. I don't want it anymore. And unfortunately, that just meant I got about halfway through it. All the scenes outside of the school, loved, thought were great. The minute we got back to the school and it was like, and now we're spending the term talking about this and doing this, and I had to speak to this student, like it's not working for me. So to be honest with you, most times when I see fantasy books now that are like fantasy academia, my horror academia is different, and we'll talk about it in this wrap up. Horror academia is different, but fantasy academia, where the focus is on growing your powers, or it's an academy in a fantasy world, like it's not working for me at the moment. I feel like how I felt about Greek mythology being saturated, That's how I feel about this. So unfortunately, I did DNF it. I have 2 4-star books for you. The first one is Lightfall by Tim Probert. This is the second book for 2, Shadow of the Bird. This was really good. I can't really explain too much because it's a sequel, but it follows about a girl trying to stop the end of the world, and it's an amazing fantasy world, and the illustrations that Tim Probert puts into this is some of the best things I've ever seen. Let me see if I can find you a double-page spread. Incredible. Look at this. Incredible stuff. It's really, really good. Just a really solid, fun time. Now you might be thinking to yourself, you're going, India, you jumped from DNFs to 4-star reads and you're saying it's a bad month. Between these were so many DNFs and so many days of not reading a single thing. No motivation, no desire to read anything from my shelves. And if you've seen my shelves, you know I have many books. So when I say this and go, look at this 4-star or this 5-star, know that it was a slog to get there. Okay. Next up is Two Can Play by Ali Hazelwood. This is a fun gamer novella. I just realised I think I've read all of Ali Hazelwood's short stories and novellas and have yet to read a novel of hers. This is a really fun novella following 2 characters whose names I've now forgotten, Viola and Jessie. Viola and Jessie are lead video game designers for their respective companies, and their companies are on a winter retreat to kind of build team building because they have both been commissioned together to create this amazing video game by this studio. I don't understand how that works. And basically they're pulling talent from both companies to make this video game. And Viola and Jessie have very much not vibing with each other. There's just something weird about their dynamic, and they go on a winter retreat and it's just really fun and funny. I really like Viola, and it's the first romance book actually where I've only read from one point of view. So I'm normally somebody that reads dual POV. I want both parties in this romance. I need to know what they're both thinking. I don't think I could do a whole novel on just one person's point of view, but a novella, absolutely. I thought Ali Hazelwood, I personally think she's really funny, and I thought this was really funny. I'm a massive video game fan, so this absolutely just nailed it for me. I love video games so much. And the winter retreat as an idea, I thought was great, and I thought she did a really good job. I thought this was really fun. Then we go for my 2 4.5 stars. And first up is A Sign of Affection Omnibus Volume 2. So this volume has 4, 5, and 6. I'm not going to repeat my absolute love of omnibuses, but this is incredible. This follows Yuki and Itsuomi. Yuki is deaf, she was born deaf, and Itsuomi is a polyglot, and she's teaching him sign language, and they're falling in love. It's absolutely great. What I really liked about this one was we got a little bit of a wider understanding of the side characters and some extra romance subplots, which I really liked. It really showcased Itsuomi's maturity and respect for Yuki in this one. I think sometimes Yuki also flourished. My one worry was that Itsuomi was really cool and Yuki was kind of a boring character. And then I read this and I was like, Yuki's just great. She's just great. She's full of life. She's full of love. I love this woman. Again, I love the way that they do sign language in this series. But yeah, I just really, really, really enjoying it. I love a jealousy trope and it's my favorite thing. Sorry, it is. I don't know what that says about me, but this was just really, 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 really good. And I feel like the first 3 volumes were really good at setting up Yuki and Itsuomi and having an understanding of who these characters are, who these people are, them getting together. And then the second volume is more about them establishing who they are within their relationship and the next steps within their relationship. And then we're also then able to expand to wider characters. And I really, really, really like that. And this is just such an amazing series. I literally have the 3rd omnibus volume upstairs. I can see it in my mind's eye. Then we have The Spirit Bares Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. Now, before you come for me and say, India, this is an academic setting. Horror academia is different, okay? And what I want to say the difference is here is that in this one, you're barely talking about their studies. And I will say it's less of a school and more of a kind of nicer version of a asylum for women, if I'm being honest. We don't really go into the school element of this. It feels a little bit like a juvie. It feels like we've locked these women away, and Silas, who's not a woman, but we lock these people away and we kind of just teach them how to be a wife. It doesn't feel very schooly. And also Andrew Joseph White, literally, I would say maybe out of this whole book, I would say maybe 50 pages or less is dedicated to what they're actually learning. So there we go. So I don't count this as like any real academia setting. I just think it's a gothic horror. So this follows Silas. Silas is a trans boy And in this world, in London in the 1800s, certain members of the population and across the world are, if you're born with violet eyes, you can access the Vale, the realm of the spirits. And if you're a man, that's great. The whole world's your oyster. If you're a woman, your role is to basically make more violet-eyed babies, and that's it. And Silas is in an even more complicated position because Silas is trans and is trying to find a life for himself outside the clutches of being a woman in this society. And Silas makes a desperate attempt to escape his future because his family are going to marry him off, and it does not work. It doesn't work, and Silas gets sent to Braxton something finishing school, sanatorium and finishing school. And again, emphasis on the sanatorium, less on the school. And in this, Silas meets a bunch of young women who are all here kind of for the same reasons, but the vibes are off. There's spirits, everybody's very tetchy, it doesn't feel safe, and it's scary. And Silas takes it upon himself to try and escape, but also figure out what the hell is going on at this sanatorium. And it's intense. Now, this is good. Like, this is the book that saved me out of my February reading slump. Trigger warning check, if you're going to read this, quite severely trigger warning check. That it is gory as hell. That's what to expect from an Andrew Joseph White horror. I've read Hell Followed With Us. I will say, I thought Hell Followed With Us was fine. This is on a whole other level incredible. But yeah, with this one, check those trigger warnings. Gory to the max, abuse, the whole shebang is in this. But I just want to say, I really like Silas as a character. The tension writing was amazing. I really enjoyed the world in a way. Like, I thought it was written very well. The mystery, everything was incredible. I liked the side characters. This had me on the edge of my seat, and it's all I could think about for the 3 days that I read it. Incredible, this book. Then we move on to my 5 stars, and these were fucking good. I would not be surprised if these make it to my favorite list at the end of the year. I'm feeling confident about it. First up, we have Tusk Love by Thea Guanzon. This is my kind of romantasy. Personally, for me, and the romantasy that I like to enjoy, it's less like a big Save the Kingdom trilogy with my enemy. I'm not personally interested in that for romantasy. For myself, I appreciate what it is. There's probably, later down the line, I'll probably read a series that is that kind of book and I'll probably love it. But for me, with what I personally like, this is the kind of romantasy I like. I want a romance-first romantasy. I don't want it to be incredibly high stakes with so many different side characters. I want it to be like I would read any other romance book, like any other contemporary romance book that I would read, just set it in a fantasy setting. That's what I want. Less on the big epic fantasy plots, more on the fun, tropey romances. That's just me. That's just me. That's just my favorite thing. This follows Gwen. Gwen is a young woman with a fire spirit inside her that she can't really control. And she is on her way to a fancy, rich, expensive port town to meet her fiance, who's a rich nobleman, that her family have set up this marriage to save the family business, and she's on her way. Except for, oopsie, she gets attacked. She gets attacked, and she ends up getting the help of this gorgeous half-orc called Oscar, who assists her to the town so she can marry her fiancé. But oh no, they fall in love. And it's so fucking good. It's so good. It's literally just like from point A to point B, but during that time, they learn a lot about each other, a lot about themselves, and they fall in love. That is my kind of romantasy, okay? I want more of this. If you as an author or as a publisher tell me that you've got a book that's similar vibe-wise to Tusk Love, which is just two people falling in love, like in a normal contemporary romance, but it just so happens that maybe he's a half-orc and maybe she's a sorcerer and it's a fantasy setting, you've sold me and you can take all my fucking money. So good. The romance in this, 10 out of 10. The characters, 10 out of 10. The scenes, 10 out of 10. Incredible. I loved everything about this. I thought the fantasy world was great. Obviously, there's the critical role element, which I do love. And as a Dungeons and Dragons fan, it was funny to watch them try and call druids, but without calling them druids. Absolutely incredible. So much fun. My only critique is that there's no epilogue. There's no 2 years later epilogue. So where is that short story / novella? I'm asking for a friend, which is me. And my final book and my favorite book of the month is Yesteryear by Caro Burke. This is kind of like Black Mirror meets The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. That's how I personally would explain it. This follows Natalie. Natalie is the wife of the youngest son of a big senator who has been trying to become president for years. And she's also a very popular trad wife, momfluencer, right? She makes her dough by living on a farm, posting about her life and her kids and how she's additive free and she makes everything from scratch in this lovely nuclear family that she has, even though she's a bajillion children. And this book follows her when one day she wakes up and she's in 1805. She wakes up and she's in the past. She wakes up and everything that she has known, all of her luxuries that she pretends she doesn't have on her social media profile, gone. And she doesn't know what the fuck has happened. You follow her in 2 different points in time. Her present day, which you're not sure if it's her present day or not, because the whole vibe of this is you're not sure whether she's in 1805 or whether is it like a reality show or is God trying to test her? You don't really know what it is, right? And then the other point of view, you have her from 18 going off to university for the first time, having lived a very sheltered life with her single mum and her sister, going out into the world where not everybody thinks the way that she thinks and has views on life the way that she views things, and how she went from this confused 18-year-old to being like a multi-millionaire, marrying and having babies with the son of maybe potentially a president. And you see all of that, and then you also see her present-ish day as she's now kind of learning about what it is that a trad wife, a traditional wife in the 1800s would actually go through. And it's so fucking good. And I will say this once, and I'm going to say it many times. I fucking love I love an unreliable narrator, and I love a main character that I don't like. I'm thinking main character in Yellowface. That vibe. I read this whole thing so enthralled and intrigued by Natalie. Didn't like her. Loved her as a character. I think she's incredibly well written. And I think Caro Burke does a really good way of like, oh God, like I can't begin to explain how well the writing is personally for me. Like I just loved it so much. I don't like her. I would not invite Natalie around to my house. We would not be getting tea. We wouldn't be. I wouldn't, no, not happening. But as a book character, 10 out of fucking 10. 10 out of 10. And I just really enjoy it. I like reading about characters who have views different from mine because I like to read them and go, wow, that's how other people live. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that something else? I think to write a character that is unlikable, maybe lacks in certain areas moralistically, you know, I think it takes a lot of nuance in writing. I think it takes a lot of skill because you have to make the book enjoyable, that people want to continue reading, even though they're actively reading a character that they don't like. And I think Caro Burke nailed it. Nailed it. This right now, as of now, this is the top contender for book of the year. We are literally the 28th of February. So we got a lot going on. But that's what we're dealing with right now. But there we go. That's it. This is my February TBR. Not February TBR, February wrap up. And I will say, despite how awful and unmotivated I was through the month, this is a good selection. This is a good selection, apart from Underwater Summary. But yes, thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. And hopefully I will be a little bit more on it with filming. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.